Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive.
Yeah.
This time, we're headed to Baltimore,
Okay.
where a government program intended to help revitalize communities might not have worked out as planned.
Right.
We're talking about the historic tax credit
Hmm.
and allegations of impropriety involving renovated homes. So to give everyone a little bit of background,
Sure.
the historic tax credit
Okay.
aims to incentivize the renovation of historic properties
Yes.
by offering tax breaks
Right.
to developers
Yep.
to offset the cost of those renovations,
Mm.
which should mean, in theory,
Yes.
lower prices for buyers.
That's right. Yeah. It's
Oh.
supposed to make it so that, developers can rehab these properties
Mm.
without having to charge an arm and a leg for them, make them more attainable to the home buyers.
Right. It sounds great. On paper, sounds like a win-win.
It does. It really does.
So what went wrong?
Well, that's what we're here to unpack.
Okay.
Our deep dive today centers around a neighborhood in Baltimore called Station East,
Okay.
which was targeted for this revitalization,
Using the historic tax credit.
using this very tax credit.
Right.
We've got a complaint filed with the Maryland Real Estate Commission, a lawsuit, meeting minutes, property records, renovation invoices, like you name it.
Wow.
We got a lot to unpack.
So where do we even begin?
Let's start with the key players.
Okay.
On the one side, we've got the Historic East Baltimore Community Action Coalition, or HEBT,
Okay.
a nonprofit dedicated to community development.
Okay.
They partnered with a for-profit developer called Eager Street Development 28 LLC, or ESD, to make this project happen.
Okay, so we've got the nonprofit and the for-profit working together.
All right.
What were they promising to deliver in Station E?
High quality, high-performance homes,
Okay.
engineered for energy efficiency,
Yeah.
cost savings,
Mm.
and comfort. They were really targeting those first-time home buyers with these homes. Trying to really sell them on this idea that you can get this great home, that's been completely renovated, and it's going to save you money in the long run.
Right, because you're saving on energy costs.
Exactly.
Everything's new, so you're not going to have to worry about repairs.
Right. No leaky roofs, no foundation problems.
It's going to be great.
It's going to be great. But of course, there's a but. A homeowner named Nicholas Miles filed a formal complaint
Uh-oh.
against his real estate agent, Julie Kolb,
Okay.
as well as HEBCC and ESD.
Oh, boy. What are the allegations?
Well, Miles claims that Kolb, act on behalf of ESD,
Mm-hmm.
didn't fully explain the implications of the historic tax credit.
Okay.
He was under the impression that he would be receiving some kind of direct financial incentive,
Okay.
which he says never materialized. And this is where the language in the historic tax credit agreement gets really important. There's a clause that states HEBCAC will advance certain funds to the seller for the renovation of the project. Seller has agreed to sell the property to buyer for a reduced price because HEBCAC advanced such funds to seller.
Hold on. So this agreement specifically says that the home buyer,
Right.
in this case Nicholas Miles, should have gotten a reduced price on his house
Right.
because of the tax credit.
That's how it seems to read, yes.
Okay.
So the question is, did he get that discount?
Right.
And if not, where did those tax credit funds actually go? That's what we're trying to figure out.
I am hooked. I'm
Yeah.
ready to dive in.
Let's do it.
Okay, so what else? What else do we know about Miles's experience? Give me more.
So Miles's complaint doesn't stop there.
Okay.
It goes on to detail a number of alarming structural problems
What?
he found in his home.
No.
Oh, yeah.
This high quality home.
High quality, yeah. We're talking urgent repairs, especially to the basement and roof, that are estimated to cost about $100,000.
$100,000 in repairs.
That's what he's saying.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Okay, is there anything
It's a lot. It's a lot.
in the documentation
Yeah.
that backs up these claims?
As a matter of fact, there is. There's an on-site inspection report from KMA Associates
Okay.
that mentions severe problems with Miles's property,
Oh, wow.
which does align with what many of the issues he outlines in his complaint.
Okay, so it's not just Miles saying this.
Right.
There's an actual professional inspection.
An independent report.
That's saying there are problems with this house.
That's right.
This is getting wilder by the minute.
Yeah. And get this. Miles' house, which is 901 N Port Street,
Ah.
has a basement entrance.
Okay.
The house next door, 903 N Port Street, does not.
Okay.
And yet both homes were invoiced $4,500
Mm.
for basement entrance exit work.
Wait, they charged two houses for the same work,
Two houses.
but only one house has that.
One house has it.
What?
I know, right?
Was that a mistake?
It's hard to say for sure, but Miles believes that this is evidence of a pattern of HEBCAC and ESD intentionally inflating construction costs.
To what end? Like, how would that work?
Well, tax credits are calculated as a percentage of the total renovation expenses.
Okay.
So by inflating those expenses,
Mm-hmm.
they'd be boosting the amount of tax credits they receive.
Oh.
Right.
Okay.
So
I see where you're going with this.
yeah. So important to remember that, again, these are allegations at this point, but the numbers are definitely a little eyebrow-raising. So, for example, Miles's complaint states that the total estimated cost for his home's construction was $208,500. However, the cost reported on the tax credit application for his home was significantly lower, only $67,000.
Okay, so there's a pretty big discrepancy there.
There's a big gap there. Right. And so if this is accurate, it really looks like they were, trying to squeeze as much money as they could
Right.
out of those tax credits, even if it meant cutting corners on the actual renovations. And, if you recall that pass-through concept we talked about,
Right.
where ideally the seller receives funds for the renovation, which results in a reduced sales price for the buyer.
Right.
Well, the agreement says that
Right.
the seller,
Right.
in this case ESD,
Mm-hmm.
received the funds for that renovation, which should result in that reduced sale price, so that the buyer is benefiting from the tax credit as well.
Okay, but Miles is claiming he never saw any evidence of that price reduction.
Right.
Right.
That's right. And in fact, according to the documentation we have, Miles's initial appraisal for the home was $235,000, and he purchased it for $232,075.
So there's a discount.
There's a small discount.
It's not
Enough.
It's not what you would think it would be.
It doesn't seem like it's enough, based on the amount of tax credits that we're talking about.
Right. And the amount of apparent
Right, and the discrepancies in those costs that Miles is alleging.
Okay, so let's dive into those allegations a little bit more.
Okay.
What exactly is he claiming they did?
Well, Miles included in his complaint
Okay.
a spreadsheet
Okay.
called the Inflated pricing structure, okay? And it provides a side-by-side comparison of costs for his house, along with two others in Station East. One that was owned by Shauna Fredericks at 913 N Bradford Street, and another by Stephanie Thomas at 915 N Bradford Street.
Okay, so we're comparing three houses in the same development.
In the same development.
Okay. What jumps out?
Well, for starters, each homeowner was charged $4,500 for that basement entrance exit work.
Right. And only one person has that.
Only one of those homes actually has a basement entrance.
Right.
Miles' home at 901 N Port.
903 N Port doesn't have it.
No.
913 doesn't have it.
Nope. So two of the three houses were charged for work that wasn't done.
Charged for work that wasn't done.
That seems like a pretty big discrepancy right there.
It does, and it kind of snowballs from there. So, we've got that historic tax credit application that we mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Miles has a receipt from Home Depot dated December 24th, 2017 for new kitchen appliances.
Okay.
Total cost on that receipt, $5,445.76, which,
Seems reasonable.
seems reasonable for new appliances.
Yeah.
Problem is, the amount listed on that tax credit application for Miles's house was only $5,884.
So they reported a lower cost on the tax credit application
They reported a lower cost
than what he actually paid.
Okay,
that seems suspicious.
a little suspicious.
Yeah.
And that pattern kind of repeats itself with a few other things too.
Okay.
For example, Miles paid $9,800 for 14 new windows.
That's a lot for windows. That is a lot for windows.
Yeah.
And it seems especially high when you compare it to what the other homeowners were charged.
Okay.
Shauna Fredericks at 913 N Bradford paid $6,350 for 5 windows.
Oh, wow.
And Stephanie Thomas at 915 N Bradford paid $7,300 for 7 windows.
So they're paying significantly less.
Significantly less.
For fewer windows.
For fewer windows.
Wow.
Yeah. And Miles also paid $3,200 for his fence,
Okay.
while the other two homeowners paid only $1,000 each for fences of relatively the same size.
Right. So it seems like Miles might have gotten overcharged for some of this stuff.
It really seems that way.
Mm.
And again, going back to those tax credits, they're calculated based on those renovation expenses.
Yeah.
And if HEBCAC and ESD were inflating those numbers,
Right.
they would have received a bigger tax break.
So they benefited financially.
Potentially.
Potentially benefited financially. So it seems like there's at least, I want to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Sure.
Right. Like, is it possible that these are honest mistakes?
It's possible. It's
I don't know.
possible, but
Or is there some other reason for these discrepancies?
it's hard to say for sure.
Right.
But it does seem a little less likely
Uh-huh.
when you consider the shoddy work
Right.
that Miles is alleging was done on his house.
Oh, there's more.
Oh, yeah, we're just getting started.
Okay.
Miles's complaint details a whole host of issues. A faulty French drain, a poorly constructed roof, problems with the bathroom tile, drafty windows. The list goes on and on.
So not only were the costs potentially inflated,
Right.
but the work itself was subpar.
Subpar, yeah. And it wasn't just, cosmetic stuff. This
Yeah.
was, pretty significant. In fact, Miles ended up hiring an outside company
Okay.
to fix some of these problems called All Aspects Waterproofing.
Okay.
And that cost him an additional $14,000 out of pocket.
Wow. On top of what he had already paid.
On top of what he'd already paid.
For this house. Did they offer to cover any of that once they were made aware?
That's where things get kind of murky.
Okay.
Miles claims that at first, HEBCAC took responsibility for at least some of the repairs.
Okay.
However, that changed after a HEBCAC board meeting in July of 2019.
Okay, so they were on board with it,
Seemingly, yeah.
but then something at that meeting changed their mind.
It seems that way.
What happened at that meeting?
Well, during the meeting, two HEBCAC board members, Ken Grant and John Hunt,
Okay.
stated that they didn't have the funds to cover the repairs needed on those Station East homes.
Oh, so now they're saying they don't have the money.
Don't have the money.
Yeah.
They were looking at an estimated $470,000 price tag
Oh, wow.
to fix everything
For all the houses.
for all the houses.
Wow.
Yeah, and, they were basically saying, it's not our fault. We weren't the builders. We weren't the developers.
Right.
We were just kind of overseeing this thing.
But they were overseeing it.
They were overseeing it.
They were managing those funds.
Managing the funds, they were kind of the go-between
Right.
between the developer and the homeowners.
Right. They weren't just a silent partner in this.
They weren't completely silent, although during that same meeting,
Okay.
John Hunt also stated that HEBCAC only had a 5% ownership interest in the Station East project.
Wait, 5%.
5%. And that they hadn't anticipated any significant financial gains.
5%. And they're saying they weren't in it for the money.
That's what they're saying.
I think we need to take a closer look at HEBCAC
Yeah.
and their finances.
Yeah, maybe.
Because if they only had a 5% stake in this,
Right.
who was getting the rest of that money? Who was getting the lion's share of the profits, assuming there were profits?
Right. And what about those homeowners that are stuck with these faulty houses?
Right.
Like, what can they do? Do they offer any solutions?
Right.
At that July meeting, and according to the meeting minutes, HEBCAC was only willing to contribute the proceeds from the sale of the last two unsold homes in the Station East development to the repair fund.
So they were basically telling these homeowners, you're on your own,
Pretty much.
unless you can come up with, almost $500,000 to fix these problems.
Yeah, and it's important to remember that these minutes are only one perspective on the situation.
Right.
But based on what we've read, it's not a very flattering picture
No.
of how HEBCAC handled this situation.
No. And I can only imagine how frustrating that must have been for the homeowners
Absolutely.
of Station East
Right.
to be promised these beautiful renovated homes only to find out they're riddled with problems.
Yeah.
And then to basically be told that you're on your own to fix them
You're on your own.
by the very organization
Right.
that was supposed to be looking out for them.
That was supposed to be helping them to revitalize this community.
Right. It's just it's appalling, and it makes you really wonder about these programs
It does.
that are supposed to be helpful, but who are they actually helping?
Benefits.
Right.
That's the question.
Who benefits from these programs?
And what happens when they go wrong?
Yeah.
Because it's clear that things did not go as planned in Station East,
Right.
and these homeowners were left to deal with the consequences.
Right. So clearly we have a lot more to unpack here.
We do. There's so much more to this story.
Yeah.
We're just getting started.
Okay, so let's dive into the rest of these documents.
Let's do it.
And see if we can find some answers.
It's clear that HEBCAC's response at that July meeting did not sit well
Yeah, I imagine not.
with the homeowners.
Right.
Um, according to those meeting minutes, they pushed back
Okay.
on HEBCAC's claim that they weren't benefiting financially
Okay.
from the project.
Okay.
And they pointed to this management fee
Okay.
that HEBCAC was receiving, which apparently hadn't been disclosed previously.
Oh, so they're getting a management fee on top of everything else.
On top of it.
That's a little sus.
Well, it certainly raises questions about,
Right.
transparency,
Right, yeah.
whether everybody was being upfront
Right.
about how the money was flowing.
Right.
They also brought up the lack of
Right.
visible
That was my next question.
community
Because it's supposed to be
improvement.
a community revitalization
Right.
project.
Right.
Not just we're redoing these 40 houses.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Like we're talking parks.
Right.
We're talking community centers.
Right. Sidewalks,
Yeah. Like all that stuff.
all that stuff.
Right.
And according to Miles' complaint,
Yeah.
none of that was ever done.
Wow.
He stated that the only visible changes were to the facades of those 40 homes.
Right. And that only benefits the homeowner,
Exactly.
not the community as a whole.
Not the community as a whole.
Right.
Right. So these homeowners were right to be questioning where all that money was going.
Right. So it sounds like this is less of a community revitalization project and more of a kind of a cash grab.
Yeah. And those were certainly the concerns
Right.
being voiced by the Station East homeowners.
Okay.
And remember Shauna Fredericks,
Yes.
the homeowner that we mentioned.
One of the three.
Yes.
Yep.
During the July meeting, she claimed that both Edward Sabatino, who was a managing partner at ESD, and Jeff Thompson, HEBCAC's executive director, had assured homeowners at the beginning of this project that they would be taking responsibility for any repairs.
Okay, so HEBCAC is changing their tune now.
It seems that way.
What about ESD?
Right.
What about Winstead Rouse?
Right. Well,
Did they have anything to say about this?
neither Rouse nor any other representatives from ESD were at the July meeting.
Okay.
However,
Okay.
Miles's complaint does mention another meeting that took place on July 31st, 2019, specifically between Winstead Rouse and the Station East homeowners.
Okay, so they went straight to the source.
They went straight to the source.
Okay.
And, they wanted to hear his perspective
Right.
on the project. And more importantly, how he planned to address their concerns.
Okay, and did he?
Well, according to Miles's account of the meeting,
Yeah.
Rouse claimed that he wasn't all that familiar with the specifics of the Station East project until recently.
Wait, he was a partner in the development firm,
I know.
and he's just now getting up to speed.
That's what he's claiming.
That seems a little suspect to me.
A little bit.
Yeah.
But, that's what Miles claims Rouse said.
Okay.
Rouse went on to explain that the way those Maryland historic tax credit funds are being distributed had changed recently,
Okay.
and that this had caused some confusion
Okay.
about what, if any, financial incentives
Right.
the homeowners were entitled to.
Okay, so that pass through isn't really passing through
Right. It's
to the right people.
It's unclear. It's unclear
Right.
where that money is supposed to be going. But Rouse maintained that the original intention was for those tax credits to be reinvested back into the community as a whole, not given directly to individual homeowners.
Okay.
So, he's basically arguing that community investment
Right.
was already factored into those lower home prices.
Okay, but as we've discussed, those lower prices
Right.
aren't really that low.
Right.
Especially with all these other issues.
Right. And the discrepancies that we were
Yeah.
talking about.
Right.
So, did the homeowners buy it? No.
Probably not.
Miles, in particular, was very vocal about his belief that the Station East project was not benefiting the community at large in any meaningful way. He argued that, if anything, the inflated pricing of the homes was actually hurting the neighborhood.
Right, because if they're supposed to be affordable
Right.
and you're marking them up so much, then that prices out the people they're supposed to be helping.
Exactly.
So it's kind of counterproductive.
It really is.
So it doesn't sound like either of these meetings really accomplished much.
It doesn't.
It sounds like more empty promises, finger pointing.
Yeah. Although
Okay.
there was a glimmer of hope.
Okay.
At that HEBCAC meeting, the board did agree to set up another meeting.
Okay.
And this time, it would include all parties involved,
Okay.
including Winstead Rouse.
Okay, so we're going to get everyone together
Everyone's going to be there.
in one room
Hash it out.
and hopefully come up with a solution.
That's the plan.
Okay, did that happen?
So we don't have any documentation
Okay.
about that specific meeting.
Okay.
So it's hard to say
Okay.
for sure.
Okay.
However,
Okay.
there was another meeting
Okay.
on August 28th, 2019.
Okay.
This time between the Station East homeowners and a new face at HEBCAC, Brandon Lockett,
Okay.
the newly appointed board chair.
Okay, so new leadership
New leadership.
at HEBC.
That's right.
Did that change anything?
Unfortunately, no.
Okay.
According to Miles's complaint,
Okay.
Lockett refused to honor that commitment that the board had made
Wow.
about addressing the repairs.
They just completely reneged
Yeah.
on that promise.
They said, nope, not doing it.
Wow. That's cold.
It is. And Miles doesn't specify
Yeah.
if Lockett provided a reason for this change of heart or if any alternative solutions were offered.
So they're back to square one.
Essentially, yeah.
It's a mess.
It's a mess.
So they're getting the runaround.
They are.
If they just give up?
They did not give up easily. Miles, in particular, seems to have been very persistent
Okay.
in his efforts to hold HEBCAC and ESD accountable.
Wow. I can't imagine
Yeah.
the amount of time and energy this
Yeah.
must have taken.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's not just sending a few emails.
Right. No.
We're talking full-on advocacy for his home, for his community.
Right. Right. And he documented everything.
He did. And in his complaint, he details this long and complicated back and forth
Okay.
he had with both Edgemont Builders, the contractor who did the renovations,
Okay.
and HEBCAC, trying to get these much-needed repairs done.
Okay. What were the main issues? We talking like, major structural damage? We talking cosmetic stuff? Like, what are we talking about here?
Well, his complaint mentions a whole laundry list
Okay.
of problems.
Okay.
But there's this one recurring issue
Okay.
that seems to have been particularly troublesome.
Okay.
A leak in his basement.
Oh, no.
He first reported it to Edgemont Builders on January 2, 2018,
Okay.
and then again when another leak sprang up in July of that same year.
Multiple leaks.
Multiple leaks.
In his basement.
In his basement.
That's not good.
It's not. And
That seems like a pretty big problem.
it's a big problem, and it doesn't sound like it was addressed quickly or properly
Right.
because it happened again.
Right.
And then he also mentions issues with loose bricks
Okay.
and a cast iron pipe.
So real problems.
Real problem.
Not just, we need to
Okay.
repaint this.
Put some new cabinet doors on. Yeah, this is health hazard stuff,
Right.
safety stuff.
Right.
So did Edgemont Builders even respond?
Yeah.
At first they did.
Okay.
There were email exchanges between Miles, Joe Wilner, Edgemont's operations manager, Joe Enox, their project superintendent, and even Jeff Thompson from HEBCAC, all going back and forth about the best way to fix this leaky basement.
So at least they were talking to him.
They were talking.
Okay. Well, what is the plan?
They eventually decided to bring in an outside waterproofing company to do a pretty major overhaul
Okay.
of his basement. We're talking treating mold, ceiling cracks,
Ugh.
adding an extension to prevent water from draining back towards the house. They had to remove something called a waffle board and then seal that gap with rubber cement.
Okay.
It sounds like they were trying to,
Address the root of the problem.
the root of the problem.
Not just
Right.
slap a Band-Aid on it.
Exactly.
Okay, so did they do the work?
They did eventually. They did eventually complete those repairs.
Okay.
But, and you probably know what I'm going to say here,
Hit me.
remember how those permits
Right.
weren't pulled
Yes.
for some of that initial construction? Yeah.
Yeah, well.
Red flag. It seems like they weren't too concerned about getting the proper permits.
Are you kidding me?
This time around either.
And no permits for all that.
According to Miles, that is correct.
That's wildly irresponsible.
Yeah, what are you hiding?
Right.
Like, why
What are we doing here?
are we not pulling permits?
Yeah.
So
Did HEBCAC have anything to say about this?
well, they were.
They were overseeing
They were
it.
overseeing this whole project.
Right.
It seems that this lack of permits combined with the ongoing issues
Right.
in his house
Right.
is ultimately what led Miles to bring in that expert witness we mentioned earlier,
Okay.
Rob Congato from
Right.
KMA Associates.
Right. To come in and do that inspection.
Right. And so
Which backed up his claims?
Yes. That inspection happened on February 26, 2019.
Okay.
And Cogito's report, highlighted several major problems with the house.
Right.
It seems that this finally prompted HEBCAC to acknowledge the severity of the situation.
Okay.
They agreed to hire All Aspects Waterproofing, the company that Miles had used previously,
Right.
to redo all of the waterproofing work. They even paid the $14,000 bill.
Okay, so that's a win.
That's a win.
Finally.
Right, finally. Someone is taking some responsibility, right?
Right.
Like, yes, okay.
We're getting somewhere.
We're getting somewhere, right?
Did that fix it?
Unfortunately, no.
Oh, come on.
While that waterproofing issue seems to have been resolved, Miles's complaint lists several other outstanding problems
Oh.
that still hadn't been addressed at that point.
What else?
We're talking a leaking roof, a damaged exterior wall in the alley, damage to his master bathroom, and even a toilet that wouldn't stop running.
Oh. This is like a nightmare.
It's a nightmare.
It's just problem after problem after problem.
Problem after problem after problem. And, those were just the issues in Miles's house.
Right.
He wasn't alone in this.
Right. We've got all the other homeowners.
All the other homeowners are dealing with similar, if not worse, problems.
So what happened? Did they ever get these other issues addressed?
So Miles's efforts to get help didn't stop there.
Okay.
He even went so far as to file a formal complaint
Wow.
with the Attorney General for the state of Maryland,
He went all the way.
hoping for some kind of resolution.
Okay, did the Attorney General get involved?
It seems that they did, at least to some extent.
Okay.
In response to Miles's complaint,
Yeah.
HEBCAC, once again, committed to addressing the homeowner's concerns.
Again.
Again.
Okay.
And they even offered to extend the warranty
Okay.
on the homeowner's houses for an additional year.
So a little more peace of mind, but
Right.
still no actual plan
No real concrete plan
to fix these problems.
to fix anything.
And Miles is probably like,
Right.
I don't trust you.
I've heard this all before.
Right, exactly.
Fool me once. Right.
Right. So what did he do?
He requested a copy of HEBCAC's bylaws.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, what was he,
What was he looking for?
yeah, like, was he,
He wanted to know what was in there.
yeah, was he going to sue them?
It's not clear from the documents,
Right.
but it's certainly possible. He also wanted HEBCAC to just acknowledge that the expert witness he'd hired to inspect his house,
Right.
Rob Congito from KMA Associates, was in fact a licensed home inspector.
Okay, so they were trying to,
Discredit his claims
his credentials.
by saying that he wasn't actually qualified
Gotcha.
to do the inspection. And it's unclear from the information we have whether there was actually any question about that,
Right.
whether or not he was licensed.
Okay.
However, during that later meeting that we talked about, that included Miles Rouse and HEBCAC representatives, everybody did agree that if Congito wasn't actually licensed, they would hire a new inspector together,
Okay.
someone that all parties agreed on.
Okay.
And then they would figure out the scope of the repairs needed once those new inspections were done.
Okay, so a little bit of progress.
A little bit.
At least they're talking about,
At least they're talking.
fixing things,
Right.
even if they couldn't agree on who was going to do the inspecting. Was there any discussion at this meeting about that whole pass-through process and how the homeowners felt misled?
Yeah, it seems that, that was still a major point of contention. The residents were still deeply concerned about that.
Yeah.
They felt that both HEBCAC and ESD had been intentionally deceptive,
Right.
withholding crucial information about those supposed financial incentives.
Right, which seems totally valid
Right.
to me.
Yeah, I mean, they were
promised these benefits
Yeah.
that never materialize.
Yeah, and that lack of transparency, that constant shifting of explanations
Yeah.
from HEBCAC and ESD, it just eroded whatever trust
Right.
the homeowners might have had.
Yeah, it's like they're getting it from both sides.
They're getting it from all sides.
Like nobody's giving them a straight answer.
Right.
Nobody's taking responsibility.
And nobody's taking responsibility.
And they're the ones now stuck with these houses.
Stuck with the house.
With all these problems.
Right.
So what happened next? Did those inspections ever take place?
Well, unfortunately, that's not clear from the documents we have.
Mm.
Miles's paper trail seems to end here.
Okay.
However, he did mention in his complaint that there were several liens on his property. Liens that were never disclosed
Are you serious?
during the settlement process.
Dude, for financial entanglements, this is unbelievable.
Right. I mean, talk about adding insult to injury.
Right.
So, yeah, it definitely casts a shadow over the ethical practices
Yeah.
of both EBCAC and ESD. It really creates this impression that they were more focused on maximizing their profits
Yeah.
than delivering on their promises of, revitalizing the community and providing affordable, high-quality housing. But based on everything we've learned, it seems like those were just empty words.
Yeah. It's disheartening, to say the least, and it makes you really think.
It does.
When we talk about these programs like the historic tax credit, which, again, on the surface sounds like a fantastic program,
Right.
but maybe there's some pretty serious strings attached.
It seems that way.
Right.
And it really begs the question, who really benefits
Right.
from these types of programs? And what happens when things go wrong? Because clearly, things did not go as planned in Station East.
No.
And these homeowners were left to deal with the consequences.
Yeah, and it really highlights the importance of, not just taking things at face value,
Right.
right? Like, do your due diligence, ask the tough questions.
Ask the question.
Get things checked out
Get a second opinion.
by an independent expert because...
Right, because sometimes those promises of a
Right.
brighter future
Yeah.
might be hiding some pretty dark secrets.
Well said. That's all the time we have for today, but this is a conversation that I think deserves a lot more attention. So for everyone listening, I encourage you to check out the source documents for yourself. You can find links to those on our website. And let us know what you think. What other questions do you have about the historic tax credit? Are there similar programs in your community? We want to hear from you.